For this session that we're going to talk about. It's Architecting the Future, Talk Like an Architect. Now, before we get started, I do want to convey a thank you to everyone who is here with us today and everyone who has been following us, following our LinkedIn channels, our other social media, who has been using our resources or just architecting together with everyone in the community. And of course, for sharing the feedback, because I don't know if you've done it already, but we have these surveys open, so we need your feedback. We've been getting a lot of valuable input, but we need more. So keep an eye on that, and thank you again. Now, this is a Salesforce presentation. We're at a Salesforce event, so I need to make sure that I remind you to make all your purchasing decisions based on what is readily available today. This includes any communication skills. So, with you here today, you have me. I'm Lid Van Biezen. I'm a Salesforce CTA. I'm a former community group leader and MVP. And I have brought my amazing colleague, Von Clark McClendon, who is a PhD and my go-to for all things data. She's so amazing. So I'm very happy to present together with her today. What are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk to you about talking like an architect and hopefully set the best practice, set a good example. But before we do that, we need to talk a bit about what an architect is. Then we're going to dive into communication and its building blocks, because I know architects like to talk about building blocks. So we'll do that too. And then we'll give you some guides on how to talk the talk and walk the walk so that you can take all this good advice that we're going to give you back and make sure that you do that from now on. So what is an architect? OK, I'm going to start in a very standard fashion. According to Merriam-Webster, this is a person who guides or plans an undertaking, which I think is quite a good description. However, I think it's important to call out that they're also an expert in their domain and a bridge between domains and stakeholders. So with that in mind, let's take a look at those two sides of the bridge that an architect is connecting. On the one hand, we have our business stakeholders. Now, they know their use case, they know their users, they know their needs. And they can bring in those subject matter experts, they can evaluate room for change, they can assess the stability and unification of a process. So taking, for example, a larger organization, there might be regions and different departments. They can assess to what extent the process can be unified, and if there is room to maybe move it a bit towards those out-of-the-box features, or if it's really due to company or country-specific standards. Very important to stick to a particular process that might not be supported out of the box. That's business. Now let's talk about technology. They are the ones who know the technical possibilities. They will evaluate the implementation and maintainability efforts. They will follow and even define those best practices. And they will assess the stability of the system. So if there is a feature that is being requested, they will look at, is this something that is changing a lot? Is this something that is subject to market evolutions, maybe a quarterly process? If so, then it likely will have a different specification, a different implementation than those business as usual, the very stable processes. So as you can see, it's really important. They both bring their input, and we need to connect them as an architect. We need to bring from business to technology those business needs and complexities. And then we can bring back from technology those technical possibilities and constraints. And if we do that, then we will make sure that we actually are driving that solution design level collaboration. Similarly, we will bring or we will highlight those end user and user experience concerns from business to technology, and we will bring back those risk and mitigation strategies. In doing so, we are managing the overall implementation. So, as you might have come to understand, we talk a lot. We talk to business, we talk to technology, we talk to both. And we do this to bridge, but also, of course, to share and to create this common understanding so that we know that when we are going for a particular feature, when we're doing a particular change, this is something that will actually bring business value, and it will be done in a way that is in line with those technical best practices. So that's really important. We talked about the architect, now let's talk about communication. So what's the tea? Or coffee, if that's your preference. Afternoon, you might prefer some coffee. There we go. I want to take a moment, and this is a very elaborate slide, to really break down those building blocks of communication. Because these are really vital if you want to understand how you can use them in your architecture realities day to day, let's say. So let's start with the sender. That is me here today with you. I'm sending my message to you. I'm trying to make sure that whatever idea I have in my mind is coming through. So that is the sender, and you already have an idea about the message. Now, I'm doing this via channel. So actually, there's two channels that are playing at this part. We have the setting here, a New York conference, Go Big Apple. So that's one channel. But then also, this is actually a session that is recorded for Salesforce Plus. So you might have those virtual viewers as well. And you need to keep the channel in mind because they will be different. I might see that actually the channel that we are having here right now in person, some people might be getting hangry, or I might see that people somewhat get distracted. So I need to keep that in mind because that's going to give that feedback about whether or not my message is being clear. Now, I don't have that advantage with the virtual viewers, of course. So I need to also make sure that regardless, the message is still coming across. So we know that I'm doing this, but what about this? What about this encoding? Well, this is actually what is happening when I have an idea in my head and I need to somehow bring it to you as a message. I'm doing that using my own context, my own vernacular, communication skills, my background, expertise. That is flavoring how I'm bringing the message to you. And you will be doing the same thing because, of course, you, my audience, are the receiver. You will be decoding my message because you might have a different background, you might have a different expertise, you might even speak a different language as well, as do I, because I'm not a native speaker. So we need to really keep all these things in mind because it could be that we're both thinking the same thing, but because of encoding and decoding complexities, actually we think we're not thinking the same thing. The message might be getting lost in translation. Again, maybe literally here. So we talked about the bottom line, and I already hinted a bit about the feedback. So as I told you, the feedback is what's going to help you understand if your message is coming through, if everything is clear. This can be verbal, but it could very easily be nonverbal communication too. So keep that in mind. We're going to dive a bit deeper into a few of these blocks, starting with you, our delightful audience today. Think about who your audience might be. They might be, again, business, technology, both. They might be coming with you, again, with those different backgrounds and different concerns, different things that they want to get out of whatever the goal of this communication is. They might be multitasking. You know, our virtual viewers might be checking their Slack. You might be thinking about that coffee that I put in your mind. So there's different things that might be going on, and you should assume that likely there will be multitasking because there's so many things happening all around us all the time. So that's a safe assumption, and it will make you better prepared to deliver the message in the best possible way. They also might be multilingual, as am I, and I'm quite sure, I'm very curious, how many people are multilingual in this audience? Yeah, thanks. So something safe to keep in mind. Now that we know our audience, let's think about what matters to them. What concerns do they have? Because you're going to need to use this to make sure that you convey the message in the right way, that you speak their language. Taking business, for example, we need to think about if we want to convince them why our solution is a good approach, we think about how to communicate that to them. So tell us or tell them about how this is going to deliver that return on investment, how that this will drive this faster time to market and reduce the overall the total cost of ownership. This will help them understand what the business impact could be, and it will help them shape that business case, which we know they will need. And then going to the message, you need to spice it up. You can do this via storytelling, visual and auditory variation, artifacts, intonation. There's a lot of things. I will dive a bit deeper later, but be very conscious about how you're going to spice it up to make sure that you make it engaging. These are the tools in your toolbox. This is the communication skills that you will use to spice up that message. And those communication tools we can categorize as the visual and the verbal. And if you want to have a good communication, if you want to make sure your message makes sense, they need to be aligned. So think about that when you're creating your narrative. Talking about the verbal communication. So we talked a bit, or I highlighted storytelling. Your business process could be your story. Your audience know this already. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. It's something that you can tie your narrative to because it touches on your stakeholders' needs, which again will help them feel that this is something that is relevant to them. It will help keep them interested. You will balance the high level with the detail. So it doesn't make sense to go into detail in everything. You don't have time for that, your message will get muddled. So think about where it actually adds value. For example, if it's something complex or novel, you might want to go a bit more in detail to make sure that your story is cohesive. And then balancing that purposeful repetition or the callback. So this is something that comedians do all the time. I'm nowhere near as funny, but something that is really important about this technique is that actually, as you're going through your presentation, you're peppering in those kind of key messages that you want people to take away, right? This is something that if they walk out of this and we ask them, what are the 3 bullets that we should remember from whatever the presentation was, these are it. That's a purposeful callback that you're going to do. And then when we talk about the visual communication, make sure that it plays a supportive role, that it is not distracting, not a book. Think about how a picture paints 1,000 words, because if you try to explain a data model without showing a picture, you're going to spend a lot of time. It's not going to be that nice. So think about that. It should largely be self-explanatory. Sometimes it might just be there. It might be playing second fiddle or guitar in this case. So think about that. And if you do want to call it out, think about the narrative and the story that it has. Again, a data model, you likely have a process behind it. So think about, what kind of process is it showing? Is it like a lead to order flow? Good. Then start with the lead and work your way through the objects. With all that theory, I would like to pass it over to my good colleague to go a bit more into the best practices you can use.
Excellent. Can you hear me? Perfect. Looks like we've been set up really well here with respect to how the process works, how you make technology and the business go together, what you should look at, some key stakeholders, total cost of ownership, return on investment. But how does it look when you're actually trying to talk the talk and walk the walk? I'm going to talk to you about some key techniques that you need to employ to deliver on that. What you need to do is be able to listen and ask the right questions. Being an architect is not about having all the right answers. It's asking, asking, and asking, and then asking again, the 5 whys. Why? The reason you're doing this is not because you don't understand. You want to ensure you clearly are focusing on what the requirement is, and you want the listener to know, I heard you, and I'm clarifying this ask. It also sets the tone that the audience or the user is listening back to say, maybe this isn't what I was looking for. Maybe I need to think this again. Maybe I need to review this. Love? This includes asking yourself questions about what assumptions am I making? One more thing I missed on that is listen to actively ensure you are not just replying, like rote, like I'm nodding. Some people are nodding because that's cultural. That's nodding an affirmation, meaning I'm paying attention. It may not at all mean I agree with you. So ensure you're also saying, does that nod mean that we're on the right track? Does that mean that you affirm what I'm saying is true? Or does that not mean you're completely bored what I'm saying, but you want to get out of here? Okay? Additionally, listen and answer questions in the right way. You want to rephrase it, repeat it, or clarify it, or even in some instances, you may need to go all the way back to the drawing board and reset one more time. But you need to do this because what you want to do is ensure that you and your user are in lock and step. Additionally, be very concise and leverage the right keywords. If I started speaking patois, I'm first generation American, my heritage comes from Jamaica, West Indies. Half of the room may not understand me. They may know a Bob Marley tune or two, but they won't understand, like, what did she just say, man? Or Lilith, she speaks another language. One sentence from you.
Goeiedag iedereen.
Exactly. So when in doubt, repeat, rephrase, clarify, clarify, and clarify again. This is a really interesting photograph. Today, all of you may be photographed as well. Some of you are intently looking, you're wide-eyed, you're checking your phone, you're wondering what time you're getting out of here, you may be thirsty. It doesn't matter. What really matters is your nonverbal cues right now are saying, you're right on target, or you're not really connecting with me. Squinting may mean I'm not wearing my glasses. It could mean I'm getting a keener look. Irrespective of what the nonverbal is showing, ensure that you're in touch with that and looking at those body languages, eye gaze, touch, phone. This tells you either I need to slow down, speed up, or I'm right on track. These nonverbal communication styles are also cultural. They aren't just corporate culture, they're actually how someone's family or their familiar environment regionally is actually being able to connect with you. Your tone of voice. I typically enunciate a lot. The end of my sentences, I stop with hard breaks. You may see me do this often. This is because I'm trained in that manner. I may be expressive and open myself up. This means I'm open to communication, whereas this is, I don't agree. So make sure the gestures are actually matching the narrative. I would expect if I'm in a technical conference that the orator or the person that's conveying the message is the expert in that domain. I also may expect that post that conversation or that informal or formal audience engagement that I'll be able to engage with that person at the same level of the vernacular that they're conveying as well. So the message, the vernacular, and the topic. If any of these are amiss, the clarification of the interaction between you two gets reset as well. The other thing is to be an independent. The other thing that I want to note on this, that I want to call out is, what exactly is a technologist? A technologist is someone that espouses and is an expert in the domain, and they pass on this information to others to inspire them to use this information to solve business problems. Technologists, I understand this platform, I'm going to use this to power use cases to solve business problems. Some famous technologists are Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, and maybe even yourselves in your own right. You just haven't authored anything yet. Here's a nonverbal communication style of the typical stereotype of a technologist. Some call it other words I won't say here right now, but they tend to be very heads down, may glance up, getting some eye contact saying, I'm engaged, or they may glance up to say, I'm informally recognizing your presence, but I'm back down. Notice here that this facial is showing someone engaged, and it could be a technologist, but they're showing you I have a personality, and I'm now conveying a message that I'm enjoying this event. So my personality and my style has changed based on that setting. Outside of that setting, they'd be obviously more hands down, may be more introverted, may not be as much communicative or talkative, but should you broach a topic that they're interested in, Python scripting, flows, Apex coding, they're definitely going to meet in the middle. Another technologist nonverbal communication. Notice these two. They're engaged here. We have absolutely no idea what they're speaking about. We don't know if they're strangers or if they've worked together for an awful long time. What we do understand here is they have gestures, body language, appearance, as well as they seem to be quite happy. On the right quadrant you'll see there it says they're restrained or reserved. The eye contact is there, but they're not staring, meaning hold it, could be deemed hostile. Looking down or looking away could be deemed timid or, again, disinterested. So communication obviously matters. I'm going to let Lilith go into this for a minute.
Yes.
Keeping the message, audience, and channel in mind, thinking verbal, conveying of the message, same language, non-native, multilingual, or being aware of the cultural differences.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Von McClark. And then we want to make sure that you also check these out if you're interested in more of a communication. So we have the diagrams where you can go to, and there's a lot of things here that you can reach out as well to sharpen your communication skills. So I'll pause for one moment, but I'm running out of time. So I need to go to the next one, which is, I mentioned that we value your input, that we're thankful for that, so please keep giving that feedback. We want to make sure that we get all the good resources exactly to what architects need, and we need your input to make sure that we are going in the right direction. And with that, thank you so much for joining us.